Hi, everyone. I'm Bud Mishkin. If you could be at one sporting event in history, what would it be? Yes, you are granted with this wish. You can be at a sporting event, one sporting event in history. What would it be? One sporting event, and as they used to say at CBS a long time ago, you are there. I know, so many possibilities. There is arguably the greatest American sporting event in the 20th century, February 22nd, 1980, Team USA beating the Soviets in hockey. Do you believe in miracles at the 1980 Olympics? There's Bobby Thompson's shot heard round the world, October 3rd, 1951, the ninth inning home run against the Dodgers to complete an amazing comeback and win a three-game playoff series for the right, so to speak, of playing the Yankees in the World Series. Yes, the Giants won the pennant. My father's favorite moment pretty much in the history of Western civilization. It would be pretty compelling also to be at the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City on October 16th, 1968, watching Tommy Smith win the gold and John Carlos the bronze in the 200 meters, and then instantly etch themselves into American history, both American history and American sports history, with the Black Power salute during the national anthem, almost immediately getting thrown out of the Olympics and becoming a symbol of Black Power and the struggle against racism for supporters and a symbol of hatred for detractors. I actually went to one event that's in the running, an event I never thought I'd be at, or certainly never thought I would cover. And that's June 14th, 1994, the New York Rangers winning the Stanley Cup at Madison Square Garden, Game 7, and breaking the 54-year-old curse. Yes, as the great broadcaster Sam Rosen said, the waiting is over. But the sporting event I would like to have been at happened in May 1970 at the Garden in New York. The Knicks were playing the Lakers. It was the NBA Finals. They were trying to win the first championship in team history. Now, you might think in that series, I would pick Game 7 of that series on a Friday night at the Garden. The pregame questions of whether the hobbled Knicks captain, Willis Reed, would play after getting hurt in Game 5. Then Willis's dramatic entrance onto the Garden floor as the teams warmed up. And then Willis essentially playing on one leg, hitting his first two shots, the only shots he would make that whole night, sending the Garden into ecstasy and the Knicks on their way thanks to one of the great all-time Game 7 performances by Walt Frazier. 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds, several steals. They didn't even count steals in the statistics at that point. And the Knicks were champions. So you might think, yeah, Game 7, that's a layup, so to speak. Well, if someone handed me a ticket to that game, I likely would not have complained. But if I could choose one game, if I were granted this wish, it would be Game 5 of that series, Monday, May 4th, 1970. A little bit of a backdrop here. May 4th was a traumatic day for the nation and a dramatic night for Knicks fans. May 4th, 1970 was the day when 4 Kent State University students were killed, including one from Long Island, Jeffrey Miller, by the National Guard on campus. They had been called onto campus to ostensibly quell anti-Vietnam War protests at Kent State. I was almost 11 at the time and paid close attention to the news, but I'm not sure I truly understood the gravity of the situation at Kent State until I started hearing the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song written by Neil Young, Ohio, a few weeks later on the radio. And years later, the great sports broadcaster Steve Albert would become one of my best friends. And I would listen as he told the story of being a student at Kent State at that time and on that day, being told he had to leave campus early afternoon, somehow getting to the local airport and flying back to New York without even a chance to call his folks to tell him that he was okay, then landing and taking the subway back to the family home in Brooklyn. But that night, as I sat by my radio in Monroe, New York, my concern was my basketball team, the beloved Knicks of Willis and Clyde and Bradley and DeBusschere, Cazzie Russell, Dick Barnett. We were considered part of the New York market, some 50 miles north of New York City, and so the game was blacked out on television. Let me repeat that. That might seem like to someone who's 20 or 30 or even 40 or 50 right now, who was not around at that point, the notion of a game in the finals being blacked out for the local fans. A pivotal game, we couldn't watch it on TV because of the network blackout. This stemmed from the old thought that people wouldn't go to the game if they could watch it on television. Seriously. We watched the game on the radio through the eyes of Marv Albert, as we did almost all Knicks and Rangers home games. And when it came to basketball and hockey play-by-play, there was nobody better. Marv was a huge part of our love for the Knicks team. And on that night, he was never better. It did not start out well for the Knicks. In fact, quite poorly. They were trailing, and then Willis got hurt, crumpling with a leg injury in the first quarter, and he was done for the night. Throughout my career, I've interviewed just about all of the important players who were on the floor that night for the Knicks. Frazier, Barnett, Bradley, DeBusschere, Cassie Russell. Let's just say there was not an abundance of confidence at that moment when Willis went down in terms of the Knicks coming back to win the game. They were trailing by as many as 16. They were trailing by 13 at halftime. And remember, this is pre-three-pointer in the NBA. Now you're down by 13, seems like nothing. Hit a couple of threes and you're back in it. This was a different time. Now, stories diverge on what exactly happened in the locker room at halftime and who presented the idea, be it the coach, Red Holtzman, be it Bill Bradley. But the Knicks came out with a 1-3-1 offense, and the idea was to bring Wilt Chamberlain out from under the basket because he had such a height advantage. Also, the Knicks had great outside shooters, all of them at a time when the medium-range jumper ruled in the NBA. And the Knicks came back thanks to all of them. The team, Frazier, Bradley, Barnett, Cassie, Dave DeBusschere, a great defensive player, tried to defend Wilt. He must have been given away like at least 7 or 8 inches of height. And then Dave Stallworth, a very important player coming off the bench for the Knicks, who had actually returned from a heart attack to play in the NBA, which was, suffice it to say, uncommon at that point. He had his greatest and most important game as a Knick that night. One basket stands out, a drive to the hoop. We see this type of basket all the time now, but it was reverse, going around Chamberlain at a time when those types of baskets were rare. Marv's voice on the radio cracked, and he later recalled that was the basket of Dave Stallworth's life. And we saw it all on the radio. It was a magical second half, and the Knicks came all the way back to beat the Lakers in Game 5, 107-100, and we were listening to it in the house in all the different rooms and running around. Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? The Knicks would eventually get routed in LA in Game 6, but then come back to the Garden to complete the magical story and win the team's first title. That Monday morning was bathed in tragedy in the United States, and the loss of 4 young lives, a loss that would be felt by the nation and mostly by the families for decades to come. But on that Monday night, May 4th, 1970, Knicks fans had a chance to express their love for their favorite team during Game 5 of the 1970 finals. My choice, if I were granted the wish that I could be at one game in American sports history. Thanks for listening. I'm Bud Mishkin.